Good morning, students. Once again, we are here with the chapter Reproduction in Organisms. Its second part. Today we will deal with the sexual reproduction portion. Sexual reproduction requires two types of gametes produced by same individual or two different individuals. Gametes fuse to form zygote, which grows into adult. The offspring may not resemble the parents or each other. They show different phases in their life cycle. Now that part we have already covered in the last class. Those phases we have discussed were the juvenile phase, the maturity phase, the aging or senescence phase, and the death phase. Now for this juvenility, this was the stage before reproduction. Then maturity, this is the stage of reproduction. Aging and senescence, this is the progressive or the deterioration in body of a living being is called aging. And the terminal irreversible stage of aging is senescence. Then death is the permanent cessation of all vital activities. So these are the four phases in the lifespan. Then there are some plants that show seasonal flowering like mango, apple, jackfruit. Some plants show unusual flowering phenomena. They are perennial plants. For example, Strobilanthes kunthiana, commonly known as Neelakurinji, the plant that flowers once in 12 years during September-October. Another one is bamboo, Bambusa tulda, flowers only once in its lifetime and die after this set seeds. So these two show unusual type of flowering. Sexual reproduction in plants. Sexually there are two types of flowering plants. One is monocarpic, another one is polycarpic. Monocarpic plants produce flowers once in their lifetime. After flowering, they produce fruits and die. For example, wheat, rice, etc. And the polycarpic plants are the perennial plants that flower every year. For example, apple, orange, mango, etc. And sexual reproduction in animal. Among the placental mammals, the females exhibit cyclic changes in the activities of ovaries, accessory reproductive ducts, and the hormones during reproductive phase. These cyclic changes are called the menstrual cycle and the estrous cycle. We have a little bit of idea about the menstrual cycle as we have already covered the chapter of sexual reproduction in class 10. Let's still we see menstrual cycle. This cycle is observed in the females of primate animals like monkeys, apes, and humans, whereas the estrous cycle is observed in the females of non-primate mammals like cows, sheep, rats, deer, dogs, tigers, etc. Many animals and some mammals, particularly those living in natural conditions, exhibits such cyclic changes during favorable seasons only. In their reproductive phase, they are called the seasonal breeders. For example, frog, lizard, birds, etc. And some mammals are reproductively active throughout their reproductive phase. They are called the continuous breeders. For example, rabbit, cattle, mice, man, etc. Actually, in case of seasonal breeders, we find them reproducing at some special part of the year. Whereas in case of these continuous breeders, they can conceive or they can breed at any part of the year. Then events in sexual reproduction. The events can be categorized under these headings. Those are pre-fertilization events, syngamy and fertilization, and post-fertilization events. In case of the pre-fertilization events, now these events occur prior to the fusion of the gametes and can be studied under two headings. One is gametogenesis. Now gametogenesis consists of formation of male and female gametes. Gametes are usually haploid and gametes may be homogametes or heterogametes. Now what does it mean? From the word homo means same. So they are also known as isogametes. Iso also means the same, whereas hetero means different. So homogametes or isogametes are the gametes which are similar in morphology or appearance. For example, algae. And heterogametes, these are the gametes where the male gametes are called, in case of these lower groups of plants, the male gametes are called as antherozoid or sperm in case of higher groups of animals, and in case of female they are called as ovum. Example, most of the sexually reproducing organisms including man, they are having the heterogametes. Like here we can see two isogametes of an alga. They are the identical ones. Whereas in case of heterogametes of fucus, this is the female gamete and this is the male gamete. Whereas in case of human beings, this is the ovum and this is the sperm. They are different. That's why these are the heterogametes, whereas this is the isogamete. An individual organism may be monoecious or bisexual and dioecious or unisexual. When male and female reproductive organs are present in the same organism, they are known as monoecious or the bisexual ones. Whereas, when the organisms bear only one type of sex organ, either male or the female, they are known as dioecious. If the parent body is haploid, gametes are produced by mitosis, and if the parent body is diploid, gametes are produced by meiosis. In fungi, monoecious condition is referred to as homothallic and dioecious condition as heterothallic. In animals like earthworms, bisexual condition is known as hermaphrodite. The next part is the gamete transfer. In some cases, like algae, both male and female gametes are motile. In most cases, however, male gametes are motile while female gametes are stationary. In algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gametes are transferred through water. In plants, especially angiosperms, pollen grains carry the male gametes. The number of male gametes produced is quite large as compared to female, because a large number of male gametes fail to reach the female gamete. We have studied so far the processes of pollination and the sexual reproduction. In both the processes, we have seen that the number of pollen grains produced is also more in number, and the number of sperms produced in humans is also more in number. In seed plants, that is angiosperms, pollen grains are the carrier of male gametes and ovule has the female gamete or egg. The pollen grains are produced in anthers. At maturity, they liberate in the air or are transferred to the stigma through some agency. Now we know that the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma is called pollination. Depending on the type of pollination, we can divide it into cross and self-pollination. Now the agencies required are air, water, insects or animals in case of cross-pollination, as they are transferred from one flower to another flower or from one flower of the same plant to the different flower of another plant. Whereas in case of self-pollination, the pollen grains are transferred from the anthers of a flower to the stigma of the same flower. Then comes syngamy or fertilization. The fusion of gametes is called syngamy or fertilization. It leads to the formation of zygote, and zygote is diploid in nature. It is a single cell structure. Now, what would happen if syngamy does not occur? The female gamete undergoes development to form new organisms without fertilization. The process is known as parthenogenesis. For examples, rotifers, honeybees, some lizards, etc. So, without the process of fertilization, this syngamy occurs in some cases known as parthenogenesis. Syngamy is of two types, endogamy and exogamy. Endogamy is self-fertilization and exogamy is cross-fertilization. Endogamy involves the fusion of male and female gametes of the same parent. Thus, it is uniparental. For example, tapeworm. Whereas exogamy involves the fusion of two gametes produced by different parents. Thus, it is called biparental. For example, rabbit. It is also occurs in earthworm and leech. Then fertilization is of two types. One is external, another one is internal. Now, external fertilization is the process when it occurs outside the body of an organism. For example, bony fishes, amphibians, etc. An internal one when it occurs inside the body of an organism. For example, birds, mammals, etc. Large number of male gametes are produced in both the cases. Here if we see the process, if these are the adults, this is the male and the female, both were 2n, both contain 2n number of chromosomes. Now the sperm has suddenly become haploid, or after meiosis it becomes haploid, and the ovum also it is haploid. After fertilization they form zygote, which one is diploid in nature, which by the process of their development or embryogenesis, they form offspring by the process of meiosis, or by the process of mitosis, they process offspring. Then comes the post-fertilization events. These are the events following syngamy. These include formation of zygote and embryogenesis. The formation of zygote in all the sexually reproducing organisms, fusion of haploid male and female gametes results in the formation of diploid zygote. The vital link is the zygote, and its development depends on type of life cycle of organisms, the environment it is exposed to. In many algae and fungi, zygote secretes a thick wall and forms a perinating spore called the zygospore, which undergoes meiosis and forms 4 haploid bodies. These leads to haplontic life cycle. In most animals, zygote does not take rest. It divides by mitosis, forming a diploid embryo and then the complete diploid organism. This represents the diplontic life cycle. Whereas in most plants, zygote germinates to form an embryo and then the diploid sporophyte. The sporophyte has sporangia, where reduction division takes place to form haploid spores. These grow into haploid gametophytes. It leads to diplohaplontic life cycle or haplodiplontic life cycle. Then we will see about the importance of zygote. It forms a vital link between 2 successive generations. It is hybrid in nature as it carries genome from 2 different organisms. It is a single cell diploid structure from which an organism develops. Then comes the next step, that is embryogenesis. It is the development of zygote into the embryo. It involves cell division, which increases the number of cells. cell enlargement or growth, which increases the volume, weight of the living matter, and cell differentiation, which leads to the formation of different tissues, organs, and organisms. The development of offspring from birds or fragments in asexual reproduction is called blastogenesis. Embryogenesis and blastogenesis both result in the development of a new organism. Embryogenesis in animals. Based on the development of zygote, animals have been put into two groups. The first one is the oviparous animals and the second one viviparous animals. The oviparous animals lay eggs. Their fertilized eggs are covered by hard calcareous shell and are laid at a safe place. After incubation period, young ones hatch out, for example, reptiles and birds. As in this lockdown period, we have got the news of several olive-riddled turtles to be seen laying eggs at the beach of Orissa. Viviparous animals, they have given birth to their young ones. The zygote develops into young ones inside the body of the female. The chances of survival of the young ones are greater because of better embryonal protection as well as their parental care. We also know about a type, that is the ovoviviparous type, where the animals lay eggs but they suckle their young ones. Then embryogenesis in plants. In flowering plants, zygote is formed outside the ovule where it develops into an embryo. Simultaneously, ovule becomes seeds and ovary becomes fruits. The seeds disperse and form new plants. Now, in addition to these things, we will have to study some chromosome numbers of some organisms. Now, those things will be supplied along with the worksheet. That's all with this chapter. Thank you for today.